Marcus had exactly $12 in his wallet when he agreed to the blind date. What he didn't know was that the woman sitting across from him at the coffee shop would change everything. Not for him, but for the 8-year-old boy waiting in the hospital 3 blocks away. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The notification sound from his phone cut through the morning silence like a knife. Marcus Chen rolled over in his cramped studio apartment, squinting at the cracked screen. Another medical bill. This one from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. $4,200 for Tyler's latest round of tests. He set the phone down and stared at the water stain on his ceiling, the same stain he'd been promising his landlord he'd fix for months. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a 26-year-old construction worker who could repair anything with his hands, completely powerless to fix the one thing that mattered most. Tyler had been living with him for 3 years now, ever since their parents died in that car accident on I-95. At 8 years old, his little brother had more medical knowledge than most adults. He could pronounce, quote, congenital heart defect better than Marcus could spell it. The kid knew exactly which medications he needed to take and when, could describe his symptoms with the precision of a textbook, and never complained about the constant doctor visits. But Marcus saw through the brave face. He noticed how Tyler would stop playing to catch his breath, how his lips sometimes turned blue when he got excited, how he'd quietly sit on the sidelines while other kids ran around the playground. The doctors had been saying the same thing for months. Tyler needed surgery, and soon. The kind of surgery that cost more money than Marcus made in 2 years. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from his coworker Danny. Dude, my sister Rachel has this friend who's perfect for you. Smart, pretty, works at some fancy office downtown. She's free tonight. Just coffee, nothing fancy. What do you say? Marcus almost deleted the message without responding. Dating was a luxury he couldn't afford, both financially and emotionally. Between working double shifts at the construction site and taking Tyler to appointments, he barely had time to sleep, let alone try to impress someone who probably wouldn't understand his situation anyway. But then he looked around his apartment. The stack of medical bills on his kitchen counter had grown so tall it was starting to tip over. His last paycheck had gone entirely to rent and Tyler's medications. He hadn't bought himself new clothes in over a year, and his work boots had holes that he'd tried unsuccessfully to patch with duct tape. Maybe it would be good to feel normal for an hour, to sit across from someone and talk about something other than insurance claims and specialist referrals. He texted Danny back, okay, but somewhere cheap. Cornerstone Cafe on Walnut Street, 7 p.m. Her name's Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Doctor. Great. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He was about to have coffee with someone who'd probably spent more on her medical degree than he'd made in his entire life. Someone who lived in a world where a $4,000 bill wasn't a catastrophe. The rest of his day passed in a blur of concrete mixing and rebar cutting. His supervisor, Pete, noticed him checking his phone more than usual. You all right, Chen? You seem distracted. Just tired, Marcus replied, hefting another bag of cement mix. Tyler had a rough night. Pete's expression softened. Everyone at the construction site knew about Tyler. They'd all contributed to the coffee can Marcus kept in the break room, labeled Tyler's Surgery Fund. After 6 months, it contained exactly $347. How's he doing? The same. Doctors keep saying he needs this surgery, but Marcus trailed off, focusing on his work. Insurance won't cover it? They'll cover part of it, maybe 60% if we're lucky, but even the remaining 40% is more money than I'll see in the next decade. Pete patted his shoulder. Something will work out, kid, it always does. Marcus wanted to believe that, but the bills on his counter suggested otherwise. By 6:30 that evening, Marcus was standing in front of his bathroom mirror, trying to make himself look presentable. His only decent shirt was wrinkled, but he didn't own an iron. He'd splashed some water on it and hoped for the best. His reflection stared back at him. Tired brown eyes, calloused hands that no amount of scrubbing could completely clean, and a face that looked older than his 26 years. Tyler was sprawled on the couch, connected to his portable oxygen concentrator, watching cartoons. The machine's gentle whirring had become background noise in their apartment, as constant as the hum of the refrigerator. Where are you going, Marcus? Tyler asked without taking his eyes off the screen. Just meeting someone for coffee. A girl? Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. Maybe. Quote, Tyler grinned, the same mischievous smile that had gotten him in trouble since he was 3 years old. Is she pretty? I don't know. I haven't met her yet. Well, if she's mean to you, I'll protect you, Tyler declared, flexing his thin arms dramatically. Marcus laughed despite himself. Thanks, buddy. I'll keep that in mind. As he reached for his jacket, Tyler's expression grew serious. Marcus, are you sad about the money again? The question hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He'd tried so hard to keep his financial stress hidden from Tyler, but kids were more perceptive than adults gave them credit for. Don't worry about that stuff, Ty. That's my job. But I heard you on the phone with the hospital lady yesterday. She was being mean. Marcus sat down on the edge of the couch. She wasn't being mean, exactly. She was just doing her job. Her job is to make sick kids feel bad? No, her job is to help the hospital keep track of money. But sometimes that means having difficult conversations. Tyler was quiet for a moment, processing this. I'm expensive, aren't I? The words broke Marcus's heart. Tyler, listen to me. You are not expensive. You're priceless. There's a difference. But if I wasn't sick, you'd have more money. If you weren't here, I'd have no reason to want money at all. Tyler seemed satisfied with this answer and turned back to his cartoons. Marcus kissed the top of his head and grabbed his keys. The walk to Cornerstone Cafe took 15 minutes. 15 minutes Marcus spent rehearsing conversations in his head and trying to ignore the growing knot in his stomach. What was he supposed to talk about with a doctor? His most interesting stories involved concrete mixers and Tyler's latest doctor visits. Neither seemed like ideal first date material. The cafe was busier than he'd expected for a Tuesday evening. Students from the nearby university occupied most of the tables, laptops open, textbooks scattered around half-empty coffee cups. Marcus spotted her immediately, the only woman sitting alone, checking her phone with the practiced patience of someone accustomed to waiting. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was not what he'd expected. Danny had said she was pretty, but that seemed like an understatement. She had auburn hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, green eyes that seemed to take in everything around her, and was dressed in scrubs with a white coat draped over her chair. She looked like she'd come straight from work. Marcus approached her table, suddenly hyper-aware of his appearance. His shirt was still wrinkled, his hands still bore traces of the day's work despite his best scrubbing efforts, and he was pretty sure he smelled faintly of concrete dust. "Sarah?" he asked tentatively. She looked up and smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "You must be Marcus. Danny's told me so much about you." They shook hands, and Marcus noticed hers were soft but firm, with short, practical nails. Doctor hands. "I hope it was mostly good things," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "All good things. He says you're the most reliable guy on his crew, and that you make the best scrambled eggs he's ever tasted." Marcus laughed, feeling some of his tension ease. "That's a pretty low bar. Danny once tried to make toast and somehow set off the smoke alarm." Their conversation flowed easier than Marcus had anticipated. Sarah was warm and funny, with a self-deprecating sense of humor that put him at ease. She told him about her residency at the hospital, the crazy hours, the difficult patients, and the attending physicians who seemed to think sleep was optional. "What about you?" she asked, stirring her latte. "Danny mentioned construction, but what kind?" "Mostly commercial buildings. Right now we're working on a new office complex downtown. Nothing too exciting." "Are you kidding? I think construction is fascinating. You're literally building the world around us. That takes skill and vision." Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. It had been a long time since someone had talked about his work with genuine interest rather than polite indifference. They talked for over an hour. Sarah was easy to listen to, intelligent without being condescending, and seemed genuinely interested in his answers to her questions. For the first time in months, Marcus felt like a person rather than just Tyler's guardian and primary caregiver. But as the evening wore on, the weight of his real life began to press down on him again. Every few minutes, he found himself checking his phone, making sure Tyler hadn't texted with any problems. "Are you expecting an important call?" Sarah asked, noticing his distraction. Marcus hesitated. This was the moment where most people would politely excuse themselves, where the conversation would shift from friendly interest to awkward sympathy. "I have a little brother," he said finally. "He's not feeling well tonight, so I'm just keeping an eye on things." "How old is he?" "8. And you're his primary caregiver?" Marcus nodded, bracing himself for the usual response. The subtle shift in body language, the change in tone that indicated the conversation was essentially over. Instead, Sarah leaned forward slightly. "That must be incredibly challenging. What's wrong with him, if you don't mind me asking?" Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest whenever someone asked about Tyler's condition. He'd given this explanation so many times to doctors, insurance representatives, and well-meaning neighbors that he could recite it like a script. He has a congenital heart defect, something called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Basically, the left side of his heart didn't develop properly. Sarah's expression changed, but not in the way Marcus expected. Instead of the usual mixture of pity and discomfort, her eyes sharpened with professional interest. "That's a complex condition. Has he had any of the staged surgeries yet?" Marcus blinked. Most people nodded politely when he mentioned Tyler's diagnosis and quickly changed the subject. Sarah was asking follow-up questions with the confidence of someone who actually understood what he was talking about. "He had the Norwood procedure when he was a baby, and the Glen when he was 2, but he needs the Fontaine completion now, and—" Marcus trailed off, not wanting to burden her with his financial problems. "And insurance is being difficult about coverage?" The accuracy of her guess startled him. "How did you know?" "Because I see it every day. The Fontaine is expensive, and insurance companies love to find reasons to delay or deny coverage for complex cardiac procedures." There was an edge to her voice that suggested personal experience with insurance battles. Marcus studied her face, trying to read the expression there. "You seem to know a lot about heart surgery for someone in—" He paused, realizing he didn't actually know what type of doctor she was. "I'm a pediatric cardiac surgeon," Sarah said simply, "at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sat back in his chair, staring at her in disbelief. Of all the coffee shops in Philadelphia, of all the women Danny could have set him up with, he was sitting across from a pediatric heart surgeon at the exact hospital where Tyler received treatment. "You're kidding," he managed to say. "I'm not. Why?" "Tyler. Tyler is a patient at CHOP. We were just there last week for his cardiology appointment." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "Small world. What's his last name?" "Chen. Tyler Chen." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I don't recognize the name, but that doesn't mean anything. We see hundreds of patients. Who's his primary cardiologist?" "Dr. Rodriguez." "Elena Rodriguez? She's excellent. One of the best in the field." Marcus felt like he was in some kind of surreal dream. An hour ago, he'd been dreading small talk with a stranger. Now he was discussing Tyler's medical care with someone who might actually be able to help. "This is incredible," he said, shaking his head. "What are the odds?" "In Philadelphia? Higher than you'd think. The medical community here is pretty small." Sarah leaned forward, her professional demeanor taking over. "Tell me about Tyler's current status. When was his last echo?" 2 weeks ago. Dr. Rodriguez said his pressures are getting worse. His oxygen saturation has been dropping, especially when he's active. He gets tired just walking up the stairs to our apartment." Sarah nodded grimly. Classic signs that he's outgrowing his current circulation. The Fontaine really can't wait much longer. "That's what Dr. Rodriguez said. She wants to schedule it for next month, but—" Marcus ran his hand through his hair. "The insurance company is requiring more documentation. They want proof that it's medically necessary, which is insane because of course it's medically necessary. Tyler can barely function." "What kind of documentation are they asking for?" "Exercise stress tests, additional imaging, consultations with other specialists. Dr. Rodriguez says it's all unnecessary stalling tactics, but we have to jump through their hoops if we want any coverage at all." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what it is. They're hoping you'll give up, or that Tyler's condition will somehow improve on its own, which obviously isn't going to happen. The worst part is that every day we wait, Tyler gets sicker. Last week, he passed out at school during recess, just collapsed on the playground. The school nurse said his lips were blue. That's a hypercyanotic spell. It means his body isn't getting enough oxygen." Sarah's voice was gentle but serious. "Marcus, I need to be honest with you. Tyler really can't wait much longer. Kids with his condition, time isn't on his side. The words confirmed Marcus's worst fears, but hearing them from someone with Sarah's expertise made them feel more real, more urgent. "I know," he said quietly, "but even if insurance approves the surgery, I'm still looking at tens of thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs, money I don't have." "Have you looked into financial assistance programs? Most hospitals have them." "We applied for everything. Made too much money for full assistance, not enough to actually afford the bills. Classic middle-class medical bankruptcy situation." Sarah was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking. Marcus could almost see the wheels turning in her head. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Sure. What are you doing tomorrow evening?" The question caught him off guard. "Working until 6, then picking Tyler up from aftercare. Why?" "I'd like to meet him." Marcus felt his heart skip. "You want to meet Tyler? If that's okay with you. I have some ideas about his case, but I'd need to see him first, get a better sense of his current condition." "You'd do that? Just look at him?" "Marcus, I became a pediatric cardiac surgeon because I believe every child deserves a chance at a healthy life, regardless of their family's financial situation. If I can help Tyler, I want to." The offer was so unexpected, so generous, that Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back, not wanting to break down in the middle of a coffee shop. I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Bring Tyler by the hospital tomorrow around 7. I'll be finishing my rounds, and I can take a look at him, unofficially, of course." "Sarah, I can't ask you to do that. You barely know us." "You're not asking, I'm offering." She pulled out her phone. "What's your number? I'll text you with the details." Marcus gave her his number, still feeling like this conversation wasn't quite real. Sarah Mitchell had walked into his life 2 hours ago as a blind date. Now she was potentially Tyler's lifeline. "There's something else," Sarah said, her tone becoming more serious. "I want to be upfront with you about something." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Here it comes, he thought. The catch. "I looked at my schedule tonight because of our conversation, and I have an opening in my surgical calendar next week. A case got postponed." "Okay. If Tyler's condition is as urgent as it sounds, and if Dr. Rodriguez agrees, I could potentially perform his Fontan completion." Marcus stared at her. "You? What?" "I'm not making any promises yet. I need to examine him first, review his records, and discuss the case with Dr. Rodriguez. But if everything checks out, I could do his surgery." "Sarah, I still can't afford it. Even with insurance, I'm looking at $40,000 or $50,000. She held up her hand. "Let me worry about the financial aspects for now. There are ways to work around insurance companies, programs I can access, research protocols that might apply. The important thing is getting Tyler the care he needs." Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. This morning he'd been staring at impossible medical bills and watching his little brother grow sicker by the day. Tonight he was sitting across from a surgeon who might be able to save Tyler's life. "I need to ask," he said slowly. "Why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee absently. "When I was in medical school, I met a little girl named Emma. 7 years old. Same condition as Tyler. Her family couldn't afford the surgery she needed. I was just a student then, and couldn't do anything to help except watch her get sicker." She looked up at Marcus. "Emma died waiting for approval from her insurance company." The weight of her words settled between them. "I became a pediatric cardiac surgeon so that no other Emma would die waiting for bureaucrats to decide whether her life was worth saving. If I could help Tyler, then Emma's death wasn't completely meaningless." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Don't thank me yet. Let me meet Tyler first, and we'll see what we're dealing with." As they prepared to leave the cafe, Marcus felt a mixture of hope and terror, unlike anything he'd experienced since the night Tyler first got sick. For the first time in months, there was a possibility that his little brother might have a future. But he also knew that hope could be dangerous. He'd been disappointed too many times to let himself believe that this was really happening. Still, as he walked home through the Philadelphia streets, Marcus allowed himself to imagine what it would be like to watch Tyler run around a playground without getting out of breath. To see him smile without worrying about the blue tinge around his lips. To plan for Tyler's future instead of just trying to keep him alive one day at a time. Tomorrow, he would bring Tyler to meet Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and they would find out if miracles still happened in the real world. Marcus barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he replayed the conversation with Sarah, wondering if he'd imagined the entire thing. By morning, he'd convinced himself that she would text to cancel, that the reality of Tyler's situation would seem too complicated in the harsh light of day. But at 6:47 a.m., his phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Meet me at shop main entrance at 7 p.m. Bring Tyler's most recent test results if you have copies. Looking forward to meeting him." Marcus spent the day in a fog of nervous energy. His coworkers noticed him checking his phone obsessively and making more mistakes than usual. By lunch break, Pete pulled him aside. "You're gonna hurt yourself if you don't focus, Chen. What's eating at you?" Marcus told him about the previous evening, about Sarah being a cardiac surgeon, about the possibility that Tyler might finally get the help he needed. Pete whistled low. "That's either the best luck in the world or divine intervention." "I'm trying not to get my hopes up," Marcus said, but even as he spoke the words, he knew it was too late. Hope had already taken root, growing stronger with each passing hour. When Marcus picked Tyler up from aftercare that afternoon, the boy immediately sensed something was different. "You look weird," Tyler announced, studying Marcus's face with the brutal honesty that only 8-year-olds possessed. "Weird how?" "Like when you're trying not to smile, but you want to smile really big." Marcus laughed despite his nerves. "I met someone last night who might be able to help with your heart stuff." Tyler's expression grew serious. "Another doctor?" "Yeah, but this one is different. She's really nice, and she knows a lot about hearts like yours." "Does she want to poke me with needles?" "I don't think so. She just wants to meet you." Tyler considered this. "Will you stay with me?" "Every second." The walk to Children's Hospital felt longer than usual, even though they'd made the trip dozens of times. Tyler chattered about his day at school, seemingly unbothered by the upcoming meeting, while Marcus's anxiety mounted with each block. Sarah was waiting exactly where she'd said she'd be, still in scrubs but with a warm smile that immediately put Tyler at ease. She crouched down to his eye level when Marcus introduced them. "Hi, Tyler. I'm Dr. Sarah. Your brother told me you're pretty brave." Tyler straightened his shoulders proudly. "I've had lots of surgeries." "I heard. That makes you braver than most adults I know." She led them through the hospital corridors with the easy confidence of someone who'd walked these halls thousands of times. Instead of heading to an examination room, she took them to a small family lounge with comfortable chairs and a view of the city skyline. "Tyler, can you tell me how you've been feeling lately?" "Tired," Tyler said honestly, "and sometimes my chest feels tight, like there's a rubber band around it." Sarah nodded, pulling out her stethoscope. "Would it be okay if I listen to your heart? I promise it won't hurt." Tyler looked to Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. As Sarah listened to Tyler's heart, Marcus watched her face for any reaction. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but he caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "Tyler, can you walk to that window and back for me?" "Just your normal walking speed." Tyler complied, but Marcus could see him struggling by the time he returned to his chair. His breathing was labored, and there was that telltale blue tinge around his lips that had become increasingly common. Sarah spent the next 20 minutes asking Tyler questions about his symptoms, his energy levels, his appetite. She made the conversation feel like a game rather than a medical interview, getting Tyler to demonstrate how far he could walk before getting tired, how he felt when he climbed stairs. "Tyler, would you like to see what the inside of a heart looks like?" Sarah asked, pulling out her tablet. For the next few minutes, she showed Tyler detailed animations of how blood flowed through a normal heart versus his heart, explaining the surgeries he'd already had and what the final surgery would accomplish. Tyler was fascinated, asking questions that surprised Marcus with their sophistication. "So after the Fontan, I'll be able to run fast?" "You'll be able to do a lot more than you can now," Sarah said carefully. "Your body will get much more oxygen, which means you won't get tired as easily." "Will I still need my oxygen machine?" "Probably not during the day, maybe just at night for a while." Tyler's eyes lit up. "Really? I could play soccer?" "We'd have to take it slow at first, but yes, eventually you might be able to play soccer." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Tyler had never expressed interest in sports before, probably because he'd never imagined he could participate. After Tyler had explored the tablet for a while, Sarah suggested he watch cartoons on the TV while she and Marcus talked privately in the hallway. "His condition is more urgent than I expected," she said without preamble. "His oxygen saturation is in the low 80s, and I can hear significant changes in his heart sounds since his last surgery." "What does that mean?" "It means we're looking at weeks, not months. His current circulation is failing faster than anticipated." Marcus felt the familiar punch of medical bad news. "How long does he have?" "With surgical intervention, a full normal lifespan. Without it?" Sarah paused. "Marcus, I don't think he'll see his 9th birthday." The words hit him like a physical blow. Tyler's birthday was in 4 months. "But there's good news," Sarah continued quickly. "I spoke with Dr. Rodriguez this afternoon. She's willing to transfer Tyler's case to me, and I have an opening in my surgical schedule on Friday." "This Friday? As in 4 days from now?" "I know it's fast, but Tyler can't wait for the insurance approval process. We need to act now." Marcus felt dizzy. "Sarah, I told you I can't afford." "I have been making some calls today. There's a research study I'm involved in that covers surgical costs for complex Fontan cases. Tyler meets all the criteria." "What kind of research study?" "We're studying long-term outcomes for single ventricle patients. It's completely legitimate, funded by the National Institutes of Health. Tyler would be monitored more closely than usual, but his care would be identical to any other patient." Marcus stared at her. "You're saying the surgery would be free?" "I'm saying the research grant would cover all surgical costs. You'd still have hospital fees, but those we can work with financial assistance to reduce significantly." "I don't understand. Yesterday we were facing bankruptcy, and today you're telling me Tyler can have life-saving surgery for free?" Sarah smiled. "Research funding exists specifically for situations like this. The hard part isn't the money. It's finding surgeons willing to take on complex cases and patients who meet the study criteria." Marcus leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. "What do I need to do?" "Sign some consent forms, get Tyler admitted tomorrow for pre-surgical preparation, and trust me to take care of your little brother." They returned to the lounge where Tyler was absorbed in cartoons, his oxygen concentrator humming quietly beside his chair. He looked so small, so fragile, yet Marcus knew this kid had more courage than most adults. "Tyler," Marcus said, sitting beside him, "Dr. Sarah thinks you're ready for your final heart surgery." Tyler looked between them seriously. "The one that will make me better?" "The one that will let you run and play like other kids," Sarah confirmed. "When?" "Friday." Tyler was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the gravity of someone much older. "Will it hurt?" Sarah knelt in front of him. "You'll be asleep during the surgery, so you won't feel anything then. Afterward, yes, it will hurt for a while, but I'll make sure you have the best pain medicine, and Marcus will be right there with you. And then I'll be able to play soccer?" "And then you'll be able to play soccer." Tyler nodded solemnly, then looked at Marcus. "Are you scared?" Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "Yeah, buddy, I'm scared. But I'm more excited than scared, because Dr. Sarah is going to fix your heart." "Me too," Tyler said. "Scared, but excited." 3 days later, Marcus sat in the surgical waiting room at 6 a.m., surrounded by other families facing their own medical crises. Tyler had been wheeled into surgery an hour earlier, looking impossibly small on the gurney, but flashing Marcus a brave thumbs up before disappearing behind the operating room doors. Sarah had stopped by beforehand, still radiating the calm confidence that had drawn Marcus to her from the beginning. "This is what I do," she'd told him. "Tyler is going to be fine." The surgery took 7 hours. 7 hours of Marcus pacing the waiting room, drinking terrible coffee, and checking his phone obsessively for updates. Sarah had promised to send word every 2 hours, and she kept her promise, each text message a lifeline. "Tyler's doing great. Everything is going exactly as planned." When Sarah finally appeared in the waiting room, still in surgical scrubs, Marcus knew immediately from her expression that everything had gone well. "Tyler's surgery was a complete success," she announced. "His new circulation is working perfectly. He's in recovery now, and you can see him in about an hour." Marcus felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "He's really okay?" "He's more than okay. Marcus, I've been doing this for 8 years, and Tyler's heart function post-surgery is some of the best I've ever seen. He's going to have a completely normal life." When Marcus was finally allowed into the pediatric ICU, Tyler was awake but groggy, connected to various monitors and machines. But his lips were pink, pinker than Marcus had seen them in years. "Hey, buddy," Marcus whispered, taking Tyler's small hand in his. "Marcus?" Tyler's voice was hoarse from the breathing tube, but his eyes were bright. "Did Dr. Sarah fix my heart?" "Yeah, Ty, she fixed your heart." Tyler smiled. A real smile, not the careful, measured smiles he'd been giving for months to avoid overexertion. "Good," he said, and drifted back to sleep. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the sidelines of a community soccer field, watching Tyler race down the field with the ball at his feet. The kid still wasn't the fastest player on the team, but he was keeping up, his face flushed with exertion rather than oxygen deprivation. Sarah appeared beside him, having become a regular presence at Tyler's games and, increasingly, in Marcus's life. "He's looking good out there," she said, slipping her hand into his. "I still can't believe this is real sometimes," Marcus admitted. "A year ago, I thought I was going to lose him." "You never would have lost him. You would have found a way." "I'm not so sure about that." Quote. Sarah squeezed his hand. "I am. That's what people who love each other do. They find a way." On the field, Tyler scored his first goal of the season. He turned to the sidelines, searching for Marcus, and when their eyes met, Tyler's grin was so bright, it could have powered the entire city. Marcus thought about that night in the coffee shop, about divine intervention and impossible odds, about how sometimes the universe conspired to put exactly the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Tyler Chin would grow up to become a cardiologist himself, inspired by the woman who saved his life, but that's a story for another day. This story ends here, with a little boy playing soccer under the Philadelphia sky, his fixed heart beating strong and steady in his chest, and his brother finally able to breathe easy for the first time in years. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.